I am H.A.K, dressed as the Christian Bale Batman, but attempting to impersonate the Kevin Conroy Batman. And if you want to know what my name stands for and what in the world it has to do with my intro, feel free to ask me. It's been 4 years since The Dark Knight, which has taken Batman and superheroes in general to an entirely new level, where the only tragic thing to it was Les Two-Face and the tragic death of Heath Ledger. And now at last we have the finale to this awesome trilogy. Did it exceed to the awesomeness of The Dark Knight? Well, you may find out now, which is now my 300th written review on my blog. Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight Rises. So the story of The Dark Knight Rises is, wait, if you do not want to know what the plot is yet, that's fine. Just go to this particular section on the timeline so you can skip this whole plot section for this review. Anyway, the story is, it's been 8 years since the Joker and Two-Face and Batman took the blame for all those deaths in the events of The Dark Knight. And since then, Gotham has more or less been at peace under this thing called the Dent Act, where Commissioner Gordon has been pretty much been able to almost completely destroy organized crime. Now, Bruce Wayne has locked himself up in his mansion ever since he stopped the Joker and Rachel died. But then all of a sudden, while Gordon and his men are under some investigation that somehow leads them to the sewers, Gordon discovers a group of terrorists led by Bane, and he manages to escape to tell the tale but is shot in the process. Shortly after that, Bane and his men attack the stock exchange in Gotham, where from there they have started to create a lot of chaos in Gotham, leaving Bruce Wayne to come back as Batman and stop him once for all. Now, as a movie, The Dark Knight Rises doesn't really come close to exceeding The Dark Knight, but it's likely to be just as memorable, more or less. The story, despite having a fair amount of issues, is pretty deep and complex, just as a Batman movie, or really Batman anything, should be. The characters were very loyal to the comics, sometimes even more loyal than expected in some certain areas, and altogether they were a lot of fun to watch. The action, to me, I found to be much better, mostly just because of the choice of choreography in this movie. I mean, the first two movies, they had a lot of close-ups during the action scenes, mostly with Batman Begins, which a lot of people really hated, and it's only, to me, only slightly better with The Dark Knight. But here we got so much wider shots, so we could practically see the entire battles with these shots, and that was just more awesome. The action was better, we saw things much more clearly. It was just an awful lot of fun to watch because they made very good choices with the choreography for this film. It's really just little bits of dialogue and stuff like that that's either cheesy or a couple of plot holes or stuff that just really don't make sense that I have issues with this movie. But on the whole, it's a good movie. It's very dark, it's complex, and it has some pretty good action, better acting for some of the particular actors, and all around gave us some pretty good character and story development that did an excellent job in bringing the story of Batman in this trilogy to a satisfying, dramatic, and memorable conclusion. Now, Christian Bale as Bruce Wayne, aka Batman. First off, I'm actually pretty impressed with Christian Bale on how he improved as an actor. I mean, sure, with Batman he still has the voice and everything, but as Bruce Wayne, I actually liked him a lot more. I mean, I thought he was fine before with the first two movies, you know, I thought it made sense with how he would be this, you know, playboy billionaire that's secretly Batman. But with here, he was clearer, he was louder, and he acted just more human, which made him a much more believable character. And Bale does display every dramatic moment that happens in this movie pretty well, in my opinion. I mean, yes, we still have the voice, and he uses it in stuff that's even stupider and some particular areas, but so what? At least there's some logical reason for it. I mean, he still has a voice to disguise to make sure that no one thinks that he's Bruce Wayne, so heck, and we're probably used to it anyway, so what the heck? Now, Tom Hardy as Bane. Well, the first thing I was really skeptical at first was his voice. I mean, sure, there's the fact that you can't understand him more than 75% of the time, but it's really just, to me, I was expecting a voice that was much deeper when it came to Bane. I expected a voice that was going to be something lower than what he came up with, like something kind of like with what Bane was in the animated series, or even like Frank Welker, so practically going,
"When Gotham turns to ash, you have my permission to die."
Something like that. Instead we have him going, "Of course, it's our plan to get captured. No, they expect us to have a casualty. We will now take over this plane with no survivors." Yes, I know, that is a stupidly harsh generalization of the voice, and I apologize for that. But you get the idea. Now, later on in the movie, he did use his voice to become much more menacing and powerful and dangerous. And while he wasn't as psychotic as the Joker, he really gave us a decent job in giving us a wider scale of Gotham really living in chaos. Is he an improvement from the Bane from Batman and Robin? Boy! Biggest understatement of the freaking millennium! But, there's still room for improvement. Really, it's just the voice and how he speaks and all. But otherwise, he was a pretty good character, a pretty good villain all around, and I enjoyed him. And then there's Anne Hathaway as Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman. Well, like everyone else, I've had my fair share of doubts about Anne Hathaway being Catwoman. I mean, we mostly know her as being that cute, awesome teenage character from Princess Diaries, and that today she has between mediocre to less than good movies with Devil Wears Prada, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland, Valentine's Day, and so on and so forth. And it seemed pretty odd that all of a sudden she would be Catwoman. But at the end of the day, she didn't turn out to be just good. She turned out to be the best Catwoman to date, in my opinion. She was skilled, cunning, hot, like that even to be said, a skilled thief, a bad A fighter, and yet having her conflict between good or evil with her relationship with Batman just the way it's supposed to be. Altogether, Michelle Pfeiffer made a very memorable Catwoman, and it's still going to be memorable regardless. But the reality is, it's Anne Hathaway who gave us the oh-so-popular cat burglar that has tricked Batman and stolen his heart time and time again, that makes her the best Catwoman that we have so far. Now, the music wasn't too original, or at least to the extent that most of it was really just the same tracks that we know from Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. I mean, I can only think of one or maybe two particular tracks that were new, which weren't amazing, or like super memorable, but they were still pretty good. And really, since it's the Dark Knight trilogy music all around, done by Hans Zimmer, you're gonna enjoy it anyway because it's a pretty awesome score. Now, editing, I thought were pretty good, especially since, again, the camera shots were wider with the action, and the way that they used those shots with the cutting and stuff made it much more enjoyable. And that's my review for The Dark Knight Rises. It doesn't exceed The Dark Knight, and it has a lot of issues that a lot of people have probably mentioned by now. And there were plenty of things that I wanted to happen but didn't really happen, which I find to be a big drag. But it's still a very excellent movie, very well done with awesome characters and very complex story, awesome action, and gave us a very satisfying conclusion to the Dark Knight trilogy. So altogether, I give The Dark Knight Rises an 80% out of 100. And now I have 300 reviews written on my blog. Well, admittedly, I made a few more while shooting this film, and even a little before that. But still, I've made it to 300, so thanks for watching my reviews or even reading some that are on my blog if you have. So here's to maybe getting to 400 eventually. So if you want to see more video reviews, feel free to check them out on my channel. But if you want to see more, log on to my blog at hacksreviews.blogspot.com, where now I have over 300 reviews for you to read and enjoy. And if you want to know what I want to say about the Aurora shootings, I won't say it right here on video, but on my written review for this movie, I do have a pretty big paragraph to pretty much lay out what I really want to say about that. So please, if you want to know, feel free to go to my blog and check out what I have to say about it. So yeah. Until then, everyone, I am Hack. And if you want to know what that stands for and what in the world it has to do with my intro, feel free to ask me.